She accidentally sent a private text to an ice-cold billionaire CEO. What he did shocked her. It all started on an ordinary morning when Freya used the company's internal chat system. She meant to send a personal and shockingly intimate message to her best friend at work. Instead, it went to the company's ice-cold, distant, ridiculously good-looking CEO, who never even noticed her before. One mistake, and everything changed. Welcome to Stories That See You, where every story finds its voice. If you enjoy this kind of deep, emotional storytelling, don't forget to rate this story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us grow and tells us which stories speak to you the most. Freya Lockhart. 28 years old, smart, driven, and barely holding on as an assistant marketing specialist, was running on caffeine and nerves that morning when Gwen, her manager and the office's unofficial queen of passive-aggressive warfare, showed up. Impeccably dressed and already on the hunt, Gwen had a habit of singling Freya out. Like, her success was a personal offense. "Where's the Q2 variance report?" she asked, as if it were a trap, not a task. Freya didn't flinch, didn't argue. She looked up slowly, her voice steady, but stripped of polish. "I worked on it until 2 a.m. last night. I couldn't finish the full thing in one go." Gwen blinked once, then tilted her head like she was bored. "Then maybe this job isn't realistic for you. You're average at best." She didn't wait for a reply, just turned and walked away, heels clicking like a clock counting down to something. Worse, Freya sat still for a moment longer than she needed to. Her hands hovered above the keyboard, fingers twitching with all the things she wouldn't type. She exhaled through her nose and leaned forward, not because she was calm, but because getting up would mean Gwen won. A year. She'd been here. A full year. Early mornings, late nights, skipped lunches, last-minute tasks, all of it added up to this. Average. Then, footsteps. Not Gwen's. These didn't rush. They landed clean and slow and perfectly spaced. People turned before they even saw him. Chairs shifted. Posture straightened. Jonathan Gray, the CEO. He didn't speak unless necessary, didn't acknowledge praise, didn't smile. He moved through the corridor like gravity bent toward him. Expensive shoes, dark suit, cold presence. Gwen straightened her back and smoothed her blouse, stepping into his path with a perfectly timed nod. "Mr. Gray, lovely to see you down here today." He didn't stop walking. "Just passing through," he said, barely turning his head. Gwen was left standing mid-nod, her face frozen in practiced warmth. Freya didn't look up. She knew the sound of Gwen being ignored. She opened the company chat window, clicked on John's name, or thought she did, and started typing. The words came in a rush, not because she had time, but because there was nothing else to do with the noise inside her head. "God, John, please tell me we're getting drinks after work. Gwen is actually trying to kill me." She shut down both my proposals, the ones I lost sleep over, and called them uninspired. That woman has made sabotaging me her full-time hobby. I swear, if I didn't need this job so badly, I'd walk out and never look back. But rent doesn't care about pride. Honestly, darling, you're the only part of this job that feels real. These halls are so sterile, I can hear my thoughts echo. And don't even get me started on how long it's been since I was touched by anything other than stress. My most consistent relationship is with my pink vibrator, and honestly, I'm not proud. Please come by after. I just need to laugh or scream. Maybe both. Freya hit send, didn't check the name, didn't reread. Just closed the window and opened a spreadsheet like nothing happened. That evening, Johnson Spacey, the office's social butterfly and Freya's closest friend, who knew everything, from her go-to coffee order to how much she hated Gwen's. Her fake compliments, appeared at her desk, spinning her chair slightly before she noticed him. "Freya, sweetie, Whatever just happened has your aura looking like a cancelled Broadway show. We're leaving. Now. She grabbed her bag. They left together. The bar wasn't fancy, but it was honest. Low lights, scratched tables, the kind of place that served wine in short glasses and didn't apologize. John leaned back, swirling his drink. Eyebrows already raised. You didn't reply to my message, Freya said, voice light but careful. I needed at least 2 affirmations and 1 reminder that I'm a goddess. He tilted his head. Freya, darling. I got no message. Freya paused. She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, opened the chat. Her heart sank. Who did you send it to? John asked. Freya didn't answer right away. She stared at her screen like it had just betrayed her, then slowly turned the phone toward him, her voice barely above a whisper. To Jonathan Gray, it says, unread. Her eyes widened as the words left her mouth. One hand flew up to cover her lips, a habit John had seen 100 times, always when she was overwhelmed. Oh, my God, John nearly screamed. You did not! Wait, you texted Jonathan Gray? The Jonathan Gray, CEO? John clutched his chest like he'd been personally attacked. Freya, you basically just sent a sext to Christian Gray's taller, scarier cousin. He paused, narrowed his eyes. And honestly, even I wouldn't be that reckless. Girl, first of all, Hotex a whole therapy session before lunch, Freya. Closed her eyes, her palms against her cheeks. I'm literally going to get fired. No, he said, absolutely delighted. You're going to get promoted or sued. He laughed. Either way, we're getting a story out of this. Freya let her head fall to the table, groaning into the wood. The hallway quieted, like something sacred had entered. Every morning at exactly 9, Jonathan Gray stepped into the office with the kind of silence that commanded attention more than noise ever could. 37, precise in every sense. He had built his company from nothing over 15 relentless years, turning a small Boston warehouse into a global tech-driven manufacturing powerhouse, an e-commerce and export empire known for developing cutting-edge consumer products. He never arrived late, he never raised his voice, and he never ever made a scene. Jonathan preferred order, control. His private life was a locked vault. No scandals, no slips, not a single rumor with a woman's name attached. Yet every woman in the building noticed when he walked by, adjusting hair, straightening backs, hoping for the impossible. He wore tailored charcoal suits, often paired with dark-rimmed glasses he only used inside. Outside, no one had ever seen them on. His face, his corner office, an elegant blend of minimalism and masculine taste, smelled faintly of sandalwood, a detail he insisted on. The desk was sleek, the shelves lined with small model sailboats, each one meticulously positioned. No one touched anything. Not a pen, not a folder. Jonathan arranged everything himself. That afternoon, the day after Freya's text, he returned from a boardroom meeting, removed his jacket with mechanical grace, and sat down at his desk, coffee in hand. The internal system blinked with unread messages from department heads, updates, numbers, projections. Then one subject line stood out. Help me. Unusual. Not protocol. He frowned, clicked. The message filled the screen. At first he assumed it was a mistake. God, John, please tell me we're getting drinks after work. Gwen is actually trying to kill me. She shut down both my proposals, the ones I lost sleep over, and called them uninspired. That woman has made sabotaging me her full-time hobby. I swear, if I didn't need this job so badly, I'd walk out and never look back. But rent doesn't care about pride. Honestly, you're the only part of this job that feels real. These halls are so sterile I can hear my thoughts echo. And don't even get me started on how long it's been since I was touched by anything other than stress. My most consistent relationship is with my pink vibrator, and honestly, I'm not proud. Please come by after. I just need to laugh or scream. Maybe both. Jonathan blinked, then sputtered hot coffee into the air. He wiped his mouth. with precision, as if cleaning a crime scene, and stared at the screen again. He didn't recognize the name, but some employee, had just sent him what could only be described as a mental and emotional striptease. He pressed the intercom. Margot, his executive assistant, responded instantly. "Yes, Mr. Gray?" "Send me the HR file for a Freya Lockhart, full employee record." There was no hesitation in her reply. "On it." He leaned back, adjusting his cufflinks, his jaw tight with restraint. He'd grown used to admiration, even obsession, but no one, not since his mother, had ever called him John. A minute later, the file arrived. Freya Lockhart, date of birth, 1997, position, assistant marketing specialist, supervisor, Gwen Davis, previous employer, Brookline Concepts, marketing trainee, tenure, 1 year. He opened the image, amber brunette hair, bright green eyes, a softness in her expression that didn't quite hide the exhaustion underneath. He stared for 3 full seconds, then closed the tab. He picked up the phone, dialed Gwen's extension. Her voice, when it came through, was sugar-coated. "Mr. Gray, how can I assist? Is this about the projections I sent earlier? I'd be happy to come up and walk you through." "No need." His voice was sharp, cut short. "It's about one of your team members, Freya Lockhart." There was a pause. When Gwen spoke again, her voice was a notch higher. "Freya? Oh, yes, of course. What about her? What kind of employee is she?" "Another. Wait. Well, she's a bit underwhelming, to be honest. She doesn't contribute much to new campaigns. She's often distracted, lacks experience, and frankly, her attitude could use adjusting." Jonathan didn't respond. Gwen, sensing something, Shift added quickly, "Why do you ask, sir? Just send her to my office." He hung up, and in the quiet that followed, his eyes drifted back to the screen for a moment. The words still sat there, blinking like a dare. "You're the only part of this job that feels real." He didn't smile. Not really, but something in his eyes had changed. Freya stood at the door for a moment, hands cold, spine straight, heart somewhere near her throat. She knocked once. "Come in." Jonathan Gray's voice was exactly as she imagined it, calm, deep, with the sort of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. She stepped inside, cheeks burning. "You asked for me, sir," she said, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. He was watching her, not inappropriately, not even curiously, just sharply, as if comparing her to the name and photo he'd reviewed earlier. The innocence in her expression was real, but so was the sharpness in her gaze, the same contradiction she'd revealed in that message. Too raw to fake, too reckless to plan. Freya shifted her weight, her mind replaying every apology she had rehearsed. But when her eyes met his, those impossibly clear, impossibly unreadable eyes, every word vanished. Jonathan sat still for a few seconds longer, then spoke without moving an inch. "Miss Lockhart, you've been with the company for a year." Freya inhaled sharply, ready to plead, to explain, to dissolve. "Mr. Gray, I just wanted to say, I'm so sorry about yesterday. That message," Jonathan held up a single hand. "I'm not here to discuss personal messages, Miss Lockhart." She blinked, he continued, voice even. "What I am interested in are the insights of newer employees. People who haven't yet been dulled by routine, people who might have ideas that actually matter." Freya opened her mouth, hesitated, then closed it again. She looked confused, almost suspicious. Jonathan leaned forward just slightly, eyes still. "Fixed. I'd like to hear, in your own words, what contributions you've tried to make in the past year. What ideas you've had. What projects you pitched that didn't see daylight." She nodded cautiously. Then, slowly, she began. At first, her voice wavered. She stumbled over phrases, qualified her thoughts, half apologized for things no one had asked about. But then something shifted. She remembered who she was and how much effort she'd poured into those proposals. Her shoulders squared. Her words found rhythm. By the time she got to the second project, she had found her voice. Jonathan didn't interrupt. He watched, still and cold, but focused. When she finished, he didn't offer praise or criticism. He simply said, "Bring me a full presentation on both projects tomorrow. 10 a.m. Sharp. Here." She blinked. "Yes, sir." He nodded once. That was it. The meeting was over. Freya walked out of the office like she'd been spun around. She didn't remember how she got to her desk, or how she texted John to meet her in the break room. When he appeared with his usual flair, she jumped into the story. "I walked in expecting to be fired," she said. "And he just looked at me, then asked about my proposals, wants a presentation tomorrow. No mention of the message, nothing." John raised an eyebrow. Tough love type. Cold as a martini at a drag brunch. "John, I'm just saying." "He's not being generous, Freya. He's probably trying to confirm whether you're incompetent enough to fire without backlash. This might be his way of documenting it." Freya stared at him, frowning. "I came here for support, not a crime scene." "Analysis." John shrugged dramatically. "Well then, say the word, and I'll tell you he's in love with you and planning a candlelit dinner on his yacht." Freya rolled her eyes, but smiled in spite of herself. "No, but I will give him a presentation so good he chokes on his perfectly chilled water." Freya arrived at the office earlier than usual, but Gwen was already there, sipping her coffee, eyes not on her screen, but fixed squarely on Freya. "What are you presenting?" she asked, her tone coated with a forced curiosity. "You're seriously giving a presentation to Jonathan Gray." Freya pulled out her notes without making eye contact. "Wouldn't want to ruin the surprise, Gwen," she replied calmly. Gwen's smile twitched, but Freya didn't look back. Today was her moment, and she was going to claim it. She'd stayed up all night. Her eyes were bloodshot, her hands sore from typing, but she had something she believed in. Project 1. One product, many doors. Increasing conversion in smart home tech through multi-channel strategy. Project 2. Making complex simple, repackaging high-tech for the average consumer through narrative-based marketing. Freya's thesis was simple. While everyone chased the tech-savvy elite, she wanted to bring their products to the hesitant, overwhelmed, yet ready-to-buy majority. The ones nobody was really talking to. Jonathan Gray sat in his office, where everything smelled faintly of sandalwood. His desk was perfectly organized, his screen aglow, his fingers laced. He didn't rise when she entered. "Ready when you are," Freya said, her voice calm, masking exhaustion. She began. The first few slides came out stiff, but then something shifted. Her rhythm found her. Her words were clear, confident. She moved between consumer behavior charts and case studies, layered her voice with insight, and brought energy into the sterile room. Jonathan watched her the whole time and tried very hard not to smile. But it was impossible to ignore the words that had launched this whole thing, especially the part about the pink vibrator. It popped into his head more than once, and every time he had to consciously tighten his jaw to stop the curve of his lips. Discipline, he told himself. Control. But something about watching her speak, her passion, the way she lit up when she believed in a point, it chipped away at his armor. Bit by bit. When she finished, she clasped her hands, expectant. Jonathan was silent for a beat, then closed the folder in front of him. "Thank you," he said. "You may go." That was it. Freya blinked, stood, left the room with quiet steps and fire brewing in her chest. She found John in the break room 10 minutes later. "He said thank you," she hissed. "Just that, after I bled into that presentation." John raised his brows. "Honey, that man is a glacier with a Harvard degree. He's not going to clap and cry." "I didn't expect applause," Freya muttered. "But a pulse would have been nice." John smirked. "He's testing you, or setting you up to fail. Don't be naive." Freya glared. "You're supposed to encourage me." John shrugged. Okay then. I'm sure he's secretly writing love poems about you and will propose in the elevator. Despite herself, Freya laughed. I'll make sure he regrets underestimating me. When they left for lunch, John slipped his arm through hers. At that exact moment, Jonathan Gray looked out his upper floor window. He saw them, together, laughing. His eyes narrowed. A boyfriend? From inside the company? She was brilliant, yes, passionate and charming in that soft, effortless way that made you look twice. But what else was she? Sweet and sincere, or clever and calculated? He wasn't sure anymore. Gwen noticed Freya's computer had been left unlocked during the morning rush. Normally she wouldn't have cared, but something about the glowing folders on the screen made her pause. With a quick glance over her shoulder, she plugged in her flash drive and copied 2 files, Q3 launch pitch and consumer channel expansion. Her lips curled into a self-satisfied smirk as she slipped the drive into her blazer pocket. She had no idea Jonathan had already seen these projects. Just a few days earlier, Freya had presented them directly to him in his office, but Gwen wasn't privy to that. All she saw was opportunity. The monthly executive presentation was scheduled that afternoon. Each department head was expected to showcase their latest proposals and performance strategies. That morning, Gwen approached Freya's desk with her usual passive-aggressive poise. "You won't need to attend the meeting today," she said, sweet but sharp. "You're still new here, and the directors usually handle these things." Freya looked at her, suspicion flickering in her eyes, but she said nothing. Something about Gwen's tone didn't sit right. At 10:10 a.m., 10 minutes after the meeting began, Freya slipped quietly into the back of the boardroom. No one objected. She chose a seat in the last row. Jonathan arrived moments later, unusual for him to personally attend these routine meetings. He scanned the room and, without a word, took a seat a few chairs away from Freya, leaving one space between them. The room dimmed. Gwen stood confidently in front of the projector screen and began her presentation. Freya's heart stopped. Slide after slide was hers. The structure, the graphics, the phrasing, everything down to the formatting was exactly what she had prepared. Gwen spoke with false ease, presenting the work as her own. The board responded with enthusiasm, impressed by the clarity and innovation. Freya sat frozen. Her hands were clenched into fists in her lap. Slowly, she turned toward Jonathan. "Mr. Gray?" she whispered, voice tight with disbelief. "That's my project." Jonathan's eyes met hers, cool, unreadable, then calmly turned back to Gwen without saying a word. Tears burned behind Freya's eyes. Her breath caught. She stood up quietly but firmly and walked out of the boardroom. Back at her desk, she didn't hesitate. She pulled up a blank document and typed her resignation. Short, controlled, professional. "I no longer feel that my work is valued here. Please accept this letter as formal notice of my resignation. Effective immediately." She printed it. Signed. Judith grabbed her coat and her bag. She walked straight to Gwen's desk. Gwen looked up with exaggerated cheer. "Here to pack your things?" Freya placed the envelope down without a word, turned, left the building. The fall air outside was brisk, the kind that woke up every cell in your body. But Freya didn't feel awake. She felt invisible, betrayed, small. Her phone rang an hour. Later, unknown number. "Miss Lockhart?" came a calm, clipped voice. "Mr. Gray would like to see you. Please return to the building immediately." When Freya stepped into Jonathan's office, her shoulders were square, her jaw tight. She didn't greet him, didn't sit, just stood there, waiting. Jonathan glanced up from his screen. "Miss Lockhart," he said, "is there something you'd like to say to me?" Her voice was clipped. "No, sir, I've submitted my resignation, effective immediately." Jonathan leaned back in his chair. "That's it?" She blinked. "What do you mean? You're not going to fight for it?" Freya's breath caught. Gwen stole my project. You saw it. She stood up there and presented my work. Jonathan's eyes didn't move from her. And how would I know it was your project and not hers? I showed it to you, she said. Exactly, he replied. You showed it to me. She's been my marketing director for 6 years. If this meant so much to you, why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you defend it? Freya's lip trembled, but she held it together. I didn't want to cause trouble in front of the executive board. And Gwen, she's not someone you want to make an enemy of. Jonathan's gaze turned cold. So you're saying you let it happen because it was easier? She took a step back. I just didn't want to cause drama. He shook his head. No, you didn't want to take a risk. That's not the kind of employee this company needs. If you're not willing to claim what's yours, you're not ready for a seat at the table. Freya stood there stunned, then turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Jonathan let the echo fade, a faint smile creeping onto his lips. She reminded him of himself a long time ago. Freya made it halfway down the block before stopping, her fists clenched at her sides. No one steals my work, she whispered. She turned around and marched back into the building. Gwen was at her desk, smug and content. Come to collect your things? She asked, her voice saccharine. Freya smiled. Actually, I've rescinded my resignation. I'm staying. Gwen's expression faltered. I hope that's not a problem, Freya added sweetly. Gwen didn't reply. Over the next month, Freya threw herself into new projects. She stayed late. She arrived early. She was determined to prove that her ideas weren't a fluke. Jonathan hadn't spoken to her since that meeting. They hadn't crossed paths, not officially, but she could feel it. His eyes, somewhere in the distance, still watching. She clung to the little comfort she had left, John. John had started dating someone new, Mark, a marketing exec at a rival tech firm. He was tall, athletic, stylish, and just self-aware enough to be charming. Freya liked him, mostly because he made John happy. Sometimes the three of them would grab drinks after work. It helped, because between the stress, the stolen project, and her mother's declining health 3 hours away, Freya had never felt more isolated. She was building a life alone in a city that never slowed down, but she was still standing. The little bar, tucked just off Tremont Street, was a regular spot for the Grey Enterprises crowd. Warm lighting, cracked leather booths, and a jukebox stuck on moody 90s rock gave it a lived-in charm. The bartender always remembered your drink. It was close enough to the office for a quick escape, but far enough that the stress didn't seep in with you. Freya sat across from John and his boyfriend Mark, nursing her second martini like it was a lifeline. Please, she sighed, flicking an olive with her straw. Can we tone down the whole lovebird energy? I'm literally dying of loneliness over here. My life is a carousel of office hours and late-night project tweaks. That's it. John leaned back, glowing. Honey, don't jinx it. I waited 3 years for Mark. He's not going anywhere. He winked. Mark, who worked in marketing at a rival tech company, was devastatingly handsome, like guy in a fragrance ad handsome, and effortlessly cool in a leather jacket that clearly wasn't off the rack. You'll find someone who actually deserves you, Freya, John added, sincere for a beat. Freya squinted at them. Isn't it a conflict? You know, you two being from competing firms? Mark laughed. Baby girl, nobody owns our private lives. We're not shackled. We sell hours of our lives for paychecks, but freedom is non-negotiable. Maybe you should start looking at work that way. Freya rolled her eyes. Easy to say when you're in love. John clapped his hands together. Okay, shift in energy. Grey Enterprises' anniversary gala is 3 days away. What are you wearing? Freya, we're talking champagne, canapes, men in suits, maybe even a tall drink of something hot from the 11th floor. She downed the rest of her martini, the glass hitting the table with a soft clink. I was thinking of skipping. I've got a new project to pitch the next morning. I'd rather prep. John gasped. Absolutely not. You are coming. We are dressing up. We are making waves. I won't allow you to hide in that cubicle. He leaned in, teasing. Besides, rumor has it Mr. Gray, aka the Pink Vibrator Incident, is unveiling the new product that night. It's going to be big. Major eyes on the stars of the company. I, for one, plan to bask in the glow of my future promotion, Freya groaned. Don't bring that up. I'm starting to think that message never actually reached Mr. Gray. If it had, I'm pretty sure I'd have been fired on the spot. She deepened her voice, mocking Jonathan Gray. Miss Lockhart, this message is entirely inappropriate. You are in violation of company standards. You're indecent, offensive, terminated. They all burst out laughing. Mark wiped a tear from his eye. Honestly, if anyone ever leaks that, it'll be the most iconic HR scandal in years. But until then, your secret's safe. Freya smirked, then looked between the two. So, who's going to be my date to the gala? You, John. John batted his lashes. You know I'd never leave you hanging. Freya turned to Mark. You're not coming. Mark shrugged, slipping his hand into John's. We're not hiding, but we're not exactly waving a banner either. Different companies. No need to make a scene. He kissed John softly on the cheek. Freya accepted a fresh martini from the waitress. See, that's exactly what I mean. This is risky. One wrong move and one of you could lose your job. I could never date someone from work. Never risk that, John and Mark replied in unison. Don't be dramatic, Freya. The three of them laughed again, glasses raised in a low clink. Outside, the Boston air chilled the windows, but inside, the booth, there was warmth, the kind only found in rare, real friendships. Freya hadn't slept. Again. She'd spent the entire night finalizing a marketing strategy for the company's upcoming tech product. A pitch that included a redesigned packaging concept, optimized retail and e-commerce distribution channels, and sharp, demographic-targeted ad ideas. She'd built new vendor contacts, prepared data to back her campaign, and believed, for once, that what she had could genuinely make an impact. But in just a few hours, she had to be ready for Gray. Enterprise's 15th anniversary gala. The venue, a boutique hotel in the heart of Boston. The dress code, formal, the guest list, 500 employees and every department head. And Freya? She didn't even know what to wear. She leaned back in her chair, closed her eyes for a few stolen seconds, then snapped back upright. No time. She dashed out of the building and grabbed a cab to her tiny apartment in a quiet neighborhood. By the time John's taxi pulled up outside, he was already checking his watch. Let's go, Freya. We're gonna be late. Freya hurried down the steps breathless, heels in one hand, clutch in the other. I'm here. I didn't keep you waiting that long, did I? John turned and let out a dramatic whistle. Damn, girl. You've been hiding that under office cardigans. Freya smirked, sliding into the seat. Maybe you've just been too busy flirting with the competition to notice my glow-up. You snarky little witch, John said with a grin. You look stunning, Freya. For real. The 15-minute cab ride was full of gossip. They made predictions about who'd show up overdressed, who'd flirt with whom, who'd get embarrassingly drunk. Gwen is definitely wearing red, Freya declared, and she'll orbit Mr. Gray like a fly on a damn spotlight, calling him Jonathan, like they're on a first-name basis. She practically comes when he walks by. They both burst out laughing as the cab pulled up in front of the hotel. Outside, the ballroom glowed through tall windows. Arm, please, John said, offering his elbow. Freya linked hers through his. Don't embarrass me in there. Too late. They walked into a sea of candlelight and crisp suits. Waiters glided past, with silver trays, balancing champagne flutes and tiny bites of something truffled. The ballroom had been transformed. White flowers, minimalist gold details, sleek high-top tables with gauzy linens. At the far end, a low stage and screen stood ready for presentations. This was both a celebration and a launch. A night for marking 15 years and unveiling the company's next big thing. John was instantly in his element, fluttering from group to group like a social butterfly. "Sweetheart, how have we not run into each other in a year? Judy, darling, martinis soon." Freya, knowing he'd be 10 minutes deep in flattery and name recall, veered off toward her team. Gwen stood in a red dress, of course, fake laughing beside the head of HR. Trudy, glamorous and icy, stood sipping white wine next to Adam, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. They were the sales and marketing crew, the loud one, the vain one, the silent one, and the invisible one, Freya. "Hey, team," Freya said, forcing a smile. "Oh, thank God," Trudy drawled. "I was dying of boredom with Adam. You look adorable." Freya smiled politely. In Trudy speak, adorable meant harmless. "How are you, Adam?" she tried. "Fine," he answered flatly. Freya resisted the urge to bang her head against a wall. God, what a team! What am I doing here? She didn't see the man watching her from across the room. Jonathan Gray had noticed her the second she walked in, or more accurately, the second she'd walked in on John's arm. Her auburn hair was down, curled over her shoulders instead of in its usual tight bun. The black dress she wore fit like it was made for her, and her green eyes looked even brighter under soft, smoky makeup. Gone was the tired junior employee he saw in meetings. Tonight she looked like a different woman entirely, and John's arm hadn't gone unnoticed. While senior managers made their rounds trying to charm him, Jonathan's eyes kept drifting. Back to Freya. When their gazes met, she offered him a small, polite nod. He didn't return it. Freya felt her chest tighten. God, that man! One look from him and I feel like I've done something wrong. She grabbed a champagne glass from a tray and took a long sip. Yes, okay, he's a brilliant founder. Yes, he built all of this from nothing. Yes, he's disgustingly handsome in a terrifying, soul-crushing way. But would it kill him to just nod? She sipped again. And thank God that message never reached him. If it had, in her mind, she mimicked him. "Miss Lockhart, this is wholly inappropriate. You are not aligned with the values of this institution. You are indecent. Fired." She shuddered. The room buzzed around her, full of clinking glasses and low laughter. Soon, the dinner portion would begin. Later, the presentations. Somewhere between, Freya hoped she'd find a moment to breathe, and maybe, just maybe, be seen for more than a quiet girl in the corner. As Trudy droned on about her latest shopping spree at Copley Place, Freya felt her soul slowly leaving her body. She nodded occasionally, her eyes scanning the room for John like he was a life raft. But John, her so-called gala date, had seemingly forgotten she existed. Then, finally, salvation. "Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to your assigned dinner tables. Your names will be listed at your seats," came the announcement from the HR director, Jennifer Larson. Freya silently thanked every god she knew. Jennifer continued, her voice cheerful and clear. "As part of our tradition, tonight we've mixed up all departments. No sitting with your usual teams. We want to encourage interdepartmental connection. Enjoy your evening." Freya turned to John, who was squinting at the table cards like he was deciphering a treasure map. "God, John, please tell me we're seated together," she muttered. John found his card. "Ugh. Nope. They've stuck me with the 50-plus table. Sorry. Darling, I'm abandoning you. May the odds be ever in your favor." Freya gave a sarcastic smile, both disappointed and a little relieved. At least she wouldn't be trapped with Gwen, Adam, or Trudy. She rushed to the seating list posted by the ballroom entrance. "Lockhart, Freya, table number 1, table 1. She turned slowly toward the front of the room and spotted it, a large placard reading 1 in elegant font, placed dead center, right in front of the stage. At the table, Jennifer Larson was already seated, Chatting effortlessly with a group from the neighboring table, Freya approached, steadying her nerves. "Good evening, Jennifer," she said politely. Jennifer turned, instantly recognizing her. "Freya, right? Welcome." Freya nodded. "Well, looks like you lucked out, or didn't, depending on your perspective," Jennifer smiled. "You're seated with the company big shots tonight. We'll see if that's a blessing or a curse." Freya chuckled lightly. She'd always liked Jennifer, one of the few high-ranking women in the company who didn't walk around with a bloated ego. A seasoned leader in her 40s, Jennifer managed to balance maternal warmth with razor-sharp professionalism. She'd been with Jonathan Gray since the beginning, definitely better than sitting with Gwen, Freya thought. The table began to fill. The product director, a software engineer from R&D, Suzanne from the lobby, Margot, Jonathan's ever-impeccable executive assistant. The seat next to Freya remained empty. 4 tables away, John caught her eye and began mouthing something with exaggerated flair. "God, what? A table!" Freya laughed. John looked like a man condemned, slumped among a table of joyless executives, deep in discussions about tax brackets and knee surgery. Just as she reached for her glass, she felt the chair beside her shift. Someone was sitting down. She turned, already preparing a polite greeting, when her smile froze. Icy, steel-blue eyes locked onto hers. Jonathan Gray. Her heart stalled. No way. Of all the tables. Jonathan calmly adjusted his suit jacket and nodded. Once. "Good evening, Miss Lockhart." Freya, speechless, managed a shaky smile. "Good evening, Mr. Gray." He turned to the center of the table, entirely composed. Freya, on the other hand, was internally combusting. She adjusted her napkin 3 times, picked up her water, put it back down. Where the hell was she supposed to look? What was she supposed to say? The waitstaff began to serve the first course. Freya forced herself to focus on the food. The aroma of truffle risotto filled the air. This is going to be the longest dinner of my life. As the dinner was served, a beautifully plated Chateaubriand was placed in front of Freya. The aroma was mouth-watering, delicate, buttery, subtly spiced. Jonathan unfolded his napkin and placed it precisely on his lap, his movements razor-sharp and composed. A waiter approached with wine service. "I specifically requested the Chateaubriand," Jonathan said, his voice velvety and low. "Tender texture, aromatic finish." He sliced into the meat with perfect precision and took a bite. Freya blinked. "Were you speaking to me, Mr. Gray?" Jonathan turned slightly. "Try it," he said simply. With trembling fingers, Freya carved a modest piece. As she lifted it to her lips, she could feel his eyes tracking her every move. When she began to chew, the steak was exquisite, but her mind raced with 1,000 thoughts that had nothing to do with beef. "Well?" Jonathan asked, voice softer now. Freya glanced sideways, her green eyes locking onto his glacial blue ones, and for a fleeting second, she saw something else there. Warmth? Soft and aromatic. She managed, forcing an awkward half-smile. Jonathan smirked. Not fully, just the corner of his mouth. It was maddeningly unreadable. As the waiter returned with the wine, Freya leaned in. "Excuse me, what are you serving?" "Rhone Valley Syrah, miss?" "Oh, I'll pass." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "No wine?" Freya cleared her throat, feeling the weight of his stare. "Syrah doesn't sit well with me. My stomach reacts. I can only really drink Cabernet Sauvignon, specifically California Reds with fruit-forward profiles." Jonathan turned to the server. "You heard the lady." "Oh no, please, it's fine. I can just have water," Freya interjected quickly. But Jonathan's gaze didn't waver. "You're not drinking water with this dish, and I like that you know your wine." Freya tried to relax. "I don't claim to be cultured. My dad, he loved wine. He had a small vineyard just outside Rowley. Nothing big, but it meant the world to him. That's how I learned. Shiraz always gave me cramps, but a good California cab. with clear berry notes. I can't resist." The waiter returned with a new bottle, freshly uncorked. He poured with elegant precision, then set the bottle down beside her. Freya nodded her thanks, took a sip, and felt his eyes again, watching her lips as she drank. She turned her head slightly, teasing. Blackcurrant, cherry, and the faintest hint of vanilla. She bit her bottom lip, then saw Jonathan's subtle smile flicker again. "Enjoy, Freya," he said. Just then, Margot leaned in from across the table, pulling Jonathan into conversation. Freya exhaled, finally able to breathe. She glanced right, looking for John. John was staring straight at her from across the room, wide-eyed, mouthing exaggeratedly, "Pink vibrator is on!" Freya narrowed her eyes, mouthing back, "Stop it!" "When?" She turned left. She caught Gwen, dressed in striking red, eyes glued to her and Jonathan, watching, studying. Freya grabbed her wineglass and took a large gulp. Her cheeks were burning, her palms sweaty. Her entire body felt like it had been thrown into a furnace. Then she heard his voice close to her ear. "Nervous?" She stiffened. "Drop the niceties," she thought. She turned to him. "Yes, I am." Jonathan tilted his head. "Your cheeks are red. Hopefully the wine's not affecting you already." Freya's tone dropped. "Mr. Grey, you're not exactly making this easier." Jonathan reached for the bottle and topped up her glass himself, just as Jennifer glanced over with a sly grin. He continued, "Tonight, we relax and enjoy ourselves, Lockhart. Loosen up." Freya needed to get out, just for a minute. She stood, too quickly, and her elbow nudged the wineglass. It wobbled. Both she and Jonathan reached for it at the same time. The glass was caught mid-air, but not before a splash of red soaked the edge of Jonathan's trousers. Their hands overlapped. Freya froze. A spark, like static electricity, flashed through her body. Her breath caught. "Oh, God," she whispered. Jonathan chuckled gently. "We got it." Freya blinked up at him, cheeks flaming, hands still pressed together. Slowly, Jonathan slid his hand away. "Good teamwork," he quipped, attempting levity. Freya was spiraling. I'm so sorry," she muttered, reaching for a napkin. She hesitated, realizing where she was about to touch him. Jonathan gently placed a hand on her wrist. "Freya, it's fine. It's just a little stain. It won't ruin our night." Freya exhaled. "Right. Now don't let your steak go cold." As he turned away to speak with the product director, Freya downed the rest of her wine in a single gulp. She engaged in polite conversation with the software engineer beside her, laughed at a 10-year anniversary story from Jennifer, and started to feel the effects of the Cabernet. Her shoulders dropped, her laughter grew louder, her nerves melted into warm fuzziness. Still, no matter who she spoke with, she could feel his eyes on her. Always. Watching. Before the desserts were served, Jonathan Gray took the stage to deliver a short speech. It was the usual. A bit of hype for the company's latest product launch, a vision statement, future goals, and a motivational boost for the troops. Applause broke out across the ballroom, and women practically swooned under the spotlight of his confidence. He was magnetic, authoritative, and yes, giving this whole speech with a noticeable wine stain on his tailored trousers. Freya had her hand over her mouth, struggling not to burst out laughing. Jonathan Gray, the picture of corporate perfection, with Syra on his pants. John appeared by her side just as the applause died down. "Darling, you okay?" Or did the wine hit? "A little harder than expected," he whispered. Freya giggled, slightly flushed. "Oh no, no, Freya, you are not tipsy, not while sitting next to Mr. Gray." She turned to John. "I had no choice. The man shocks me like a live wire." I spilled wine on his pants. "I've never been more mortified." John leaned in, laughing. "What a night. Don't forget, you owe me the first dance. Might help sober you up." The music started. A lively pop jazz ensemble had taken the stage, and upbeat songs filled the ballroom. Freya realized just how eager everyone was to dance. Tonight, she wouldn't overthink. Tonight, she'd let go, and the wine had done its part. She and John hit the dance floor, letting the music wash over them. She twirled, laughed, moved like nobody was watching. At one point, she even ended up doing a goofy half-salsa spin with Adam, who turned out to be surprisingly light on his feet. So this is what these bonding nights are for, she thought. Glancing around, she caught herself searching for Jonathan, and immediately shut that thought down. She felt freer when he wasn't in sight. Even Gwen's passive-aggressive shoulder check on the dance floor didn't faze her. At one point, she grabbed a giant spoonful of chocolate soufflé from a tray, then danced her way back into the crowd. Just as the music shifted to something slower, romantic, pairs started to form around her. She looked for John, but he was already dancing with Judy. She turned toward her table only to come face to face with him. Jonathan Gray, expression unreadable, stance poised. He extended a hand and gestured toward the floor with the other. She blinked, then slowly placed her hand in his. Next thing she knew, his arm was around her waist, hers on his shoulder, the scent of his cologne making her dizzy. His hand was warm, too warm, his voice velvet smooth. "So, what do you think of the evening, Freya?" She looked up at him. "Does my opinion matter, Mr. Gray?" "It does," he said, voice low. "Otherwise, I wouldn't have asked." Then, without warning, his hand slid from her waist to gently brush the corner of her lips. Freya froze. Jonathan smirked. "I take it you like the chocolate soufflé. Thought I'd save you from spending the rest of the night with it on your face." Her mouth opened, slightly, then closed again. She had no words. The song ended just in time. Freya gave him a breathless smile, stepped back, and quickly made her way toward the restroom. Halfway there, she was intercepted by Trudy, who rambled about someone's shoes, but Freya barely heard her. Inside the restroom, she splashed water on her face. Her head spun. "God damn it, Freya," she thought. "You got tipsy at a corporate party. Keep it together." By the time she stepped out, the night had begun to wind down. She stood tall, composed. She just needed to find John, say a quick goodbye, grab a cab, and disappear. But John was nowhere to be seen. She grabbed her coat and slipped outside. The crisp night air slapped her cheeks. Taxis rolled by, full. All of them. She started walking. Maybe the cold air would help her clear her head. That's when a sleek black Mercedes pulled up next to her. The window rolled down. It was him, Jonathan Gray. "Freya," he said simply. "Get in, I'll drive you home." "No, thank you," she muttered, still walking, but the sidewalk wobbled under her feet. Damn heels. Or maybe the wine. Jonathan stepped out of the car. "I can't let you walk alone at this hour," he said. Placing a steady hand on her shoulder, she didn't resist. The next thing she knew, she was sliding into leather seats that smelled like him. He climbed in beside her. "Where to, Freya?" She gave him her address, trying to sound firm. "Neutral." Jonathan turned toward the front and pressed the intercom. "Max, you heard her." Then he slid the privacy partition closed. "I'm glad you withdrew your resignation," Jonathan said, eyes fixed on the window. This time, it was Freya doing the observing, his sharp jawline, the flawless skin, the way his dark hair curled just slightly at the ends, even his hands, elegant and precise for a man. There was something magnetic in the contrast between his cool, unreadable body language and the sudden, disarming intimacy he was capable of. "I don't give up easily," Freya said. "I'm glad to hear that." Jonathan turned to look at her, eyes locking with hers. This time Freya didn't look away. "I'm not afraid of those cold eyes anymore," she thought, but it seems she hadn't just thought it. "Excuse me?" Jonathan asked, the corner of his mouth twitching. Freya had had enough. She couldn't hold it back. I'm not afraid of you," she blurted. Yes, you make me tense, like, right now, those eyes. They get to me. I admit it, you rattle me. I can never tell if you hate me or if you're interested in me. And if you are, why? Why me? Why do I feel like I've been electrocuted when I'm near you? God, I spilled wine on you. You wiped chocolate off my lip. Why would you do that? What does any of this even mean? Her hands flew to her mouth. Oh God, I take it back. Jonathan was clearly trying not to laugh. So, the wine. That was because I make you nervous, he asked, amused. Freya nodded, weakly, then she kept going. I give everything to this company. My time, my ideas. I build real strategies, solid campaigns. Even when Gwen steals them, I push myself to do better. And you, knowing that, still let it slide. And last night I dreamed about you. Why are you in my dreams, Mr. Grey? Please, leave them alone. Jonathan turned back to the window, but this time he couldn't hide his grin. I hope the dreams I'm in, he said softly, aren't nightmares. Jonathan kept his gaze out the window, his voice casual, almost too casual. Or were they pink, he added, letting the word hang between them. Freya froze. No, 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 no. He didn't mean it that way. He didn't see that text. He couldn't have seen the pink device line. She held her breath. I'm just saying, he continued smoothly, if I'm going to show up in your dreams, I'd rather it be a softer shade. Freya stared at him, stunned, and then Jonathan moved on, as if nothing had happened. You're a brilliant woman, Freya, sharp. You remind me of who I was when I started this company, and yes, I'm interested. I see potential in you, a future. Your marketing instincts are solid, you just need a little more refinement. The car came to a stop. Freya sat frozen. What the hell was she supposed to focus on? The pink dream comment, the compliment, his interest. Jonathan stepped out, walked around, and opened her door. Freya stumbled slightly, half from the alcohol, half from the overload of emotion. He caught her gently, guiding her with a hand on her arm. This the place? He asked. She nodded. They walked toward her building together. Charming, he said, glancing at the modest apartment facade. She fumbled for her keys. Her mind was a storm, her heart thudding. Jonathan took the keys from her and opened the door. She turned to look at him. His eyes aren't cold at all, Freya thought. They're deep and warm. I could get lost in them. He gave a small nod, as if closing the night. I hope I didn't say anything too wrong, Freya said, dropping her gaze. He gently tilted her chin upward with 2 fingers. You're just fine. The way you are, Freya. Smart and beautiful. Sweet dreams and good night. She stepped inside, closed the door, and leaned her back against it. Her heart pounded. Louder than she could bear. She placed her hand over it, trying to calm herself. What just happened tonight? And how the hell was she going to get Jonathan Grey out of her head? His scent still lingered in her coat. She made her way upstairs, dazed, intoxicated, by wine, by words, by the weight of everything she felt but hadn't asked for. Freya could barely sleep. Her head was still spinning from the night before. Jonathan's scent in the car, the soft heat of his voice, the pink dreams comment echoing in her skull like a confession whispered in a dream. She was falling. Slowly, stupidly, irreversibly falling. She had Googled him all night, Jonathan Grey, youngest CEO in Grayson history, ultra-private, never married. And then she found her, Isla Thorne, model-level gorgeous, a tech visionary in her own right, and a silent partner in Grayson Corp. A decade ago, they were engaged. Then nothing. No news, no sightings, no scandals. Just silence. Since then, not a single woman had been linked to him, until maybe now. She shook the thought off, stuffing her hair into a quick bun and grabbing her tote. Her heart thudded with every step toward the building. God, was she always going to feel like this now when she walked in? Still buzzing, Freya stepped in too. "The office," greeted the receptionist and made a beeline for her desk. She had emailed the finalized marketing proposal for the new product the night before. 2 weeks of brutal work boiled into one killer presentation. Gwen had been CC'd, obviously, but so had Jonathan. There was a meeting scheduled that morning. He's going to talk about it, she thought. We're going to talk about it. But when she stepped inside the office, the mood was off. Buzzing. Stiff. Quiet in the wrong kind of way, people whispered. Phones were unanswered. Slack channels stopped pinging. And then the email hit. Emergency meeting. Jonathan Gray. Boardroom. 15 minutes. Attendance mandatory. Her phone vibrated again. Gwen, Adam, Trudy, all added to the invite, along with 5 members of the product development team. Only 2 departments had access to the sensitive data behind the product and its launch: marketing and product. Freya's heart dropped. She walked to the boardroom, the adrenaline from last night replaced now by a cold, crawling dread. The blinds were shut, chairs were occupied, everyone looked tense. Gwen was fixing her lipstick in a pocket mirror like nothing was wrong. Adam was pale. Trudy was overcompensating with a forced smile. Then the door opened. Jonathan walked in. He didn't smile, didn't say hello, didn't even acknowledge Freya. Instead, he walked to the head of the table and closed the folder in front of him with slow, deliberate precision. And then that voice, calm, even terrifyingly controlled. "Earlier this morning," he said, "Rival Tech made a surprise announcement. No one moved. They've launched a product. Pause. Our product." Every neck in the room tensed. Jonathan placed both hands on the table and leaned forward, his eyes scanning each face like a sniper sighting a target. "They didn't just beat us to market," he said. "They stole our concept, our marketing language, our distribution plan. Even the damn packaging." He straightened up, cold steel in his voice. This information was only shared between 2 departments, product development and marketing. A pause. Then slower. "That means someone in this room gave it to them." Silence. "No." Unbreathed, Freya felt her stomach drop. Her head swirled, not just from shock but from something else too. Jonathan's tone had changed. He wasn't the man from the car anymore. He wasn't the man who smiled at her over wine. He was CEO Gray now. And Freya. She was suddenly one of the suspects. Murmurs broke out around the boardroom like water through a cracked dam. Eyes darted, tension prickled in the air, and everyone turned toward each other in fragmented confusion. The door opened again. Jennifer Larson, head of HR, walked in with grim purpose. "This is serious," she said flatly. "I'm asking each of you directly. Do you have any personal or professional connections, past or present, with anyone at Rival Tech?" Freya's lungs froze. Mark John's boyfriend. And not just any position. Mark Goldstein was a senior marketing associate at Rival Tech. Her chest burned like a furnace. Jonathan's gaze lingered on her a moment too long. Did he notice the flush rising in her cheeks? Jennifer's voice was steady but sharp. "We've conducted our own review. Now we want to hear it from you. If anyone has had contact with Rival Tech in any form, face-to-face, email, phone, even casual, it must be disclosed now." Freya's stomach churned. She hadn't done anything wrong, but she knew what it looked like. Jonathan stepped forward. Again, his voice like dry ice. "This product was confidential," he said. "Everyone in this room understands what proprietary means. This isn't just a breach, it's a betrayal, and I don't let betrayal go unpunished." The room tightened around them. Gwen clutched her pearls. "Oh my God, Mr. Gray. Who would do such a thing? This is our family. It has to be someone with a cruel agenda." Jonathan didn't even look at her. Instead, he turned his eyes, cold and unreadable, back to Freya. "I reviewed your proposal this morning," he said. "It was impressive. Strong packaging strategy. Solid consumer angle." Freya blinked. The words should have felt like praise, but from Jonathan's mouth they landed like a slap. He didn't sound impressed, he sounded accusatory. "But there's a problem," he continued. "Rival Tech's launch, their campaign, it's exactly what you presented." The air was ripped from her lungs. Freya stared at him, hands trembling under the table. "Is there something you'd like to say, Ms. Lockhart?" Jonathan's voice was cool, biting. Gwen gasped theatrically. "Freya, what did you do?" Trudy's hand flew to her mouth. Adam said nothing. His silence was as dense as stone. Jennifer raised her hand sharply. "Enough! Gwen, let her speak." All eyes locked on Freya. She choked on her words. I don't know. I've worked non-stop on that project. No one saw it but me until I sent it last night." Whispers turned to quiet dread. The suspicion was shifting firmly onto her shoulders. "I didn't leak anything. I swear. Why would I do that? Why would anyone?" Jennifer stepped in again, her tone softer but firm. "People do things for money, or a new job. Sometimes both. It's happened before. We had to terminate a partnership because of it. And now legal action is on the table. But before we escalate, this room is where we get the truth." Freya couldn't breathe. She couldn't even look at Jonathan, not with that cold steel stare. Trained on her, not with the way her heart might fall apart just meeting his eyes. Jennifer's tone shifted. "I'll ask each of you one last time," she said. "Have you had any contact, direct or indirect, with Rival Tech?" One by one, she questioned the product team. Freya's ears rang. The blood in her body throbbed like war drums. "Don't wait, she began. No one heard her. She said it louder. "I know someone." Every head turned. Freya locked eyes with Jonathan. She wouldn't look away this time. "I know someone. At Rival Tech," she said clearly. His jaw clenched, and then his eyes shifted from shock to disappointment. Freya felt it like a blade. Jennifer raised her hand again. "Let her finish. Everyone stay quiet." One by one, the others answered. No contact, no knowledge, no connection. Then Jennifer dismissed the group. "Everyone except Freya may leave. The investigation continues." "This is not over," she said, firmly. "And legal steps will be pursued if necessary." People filed out. Adam paused, gave Freya's shoulder a quiet, grounding pat. It helped. Gwen and Trudy exited together, already whispering. When the room cleared, Jennifer gestured to the seat in front of her. "Please, sit." Freya collapsed into the chair, drained. Jennifer's voice was calm. "Tell us. Who do you know? And were you involved in this breach?" Freya's voice cracked. "Mark Goldstein. He's a senior associate at Rival Tech. I've known him for about a month. He's John's partner. We've gone for drinks a few times. Nothing serious, but I never discussed work. I didn't send anything, I swear. I didn't even talk about the product." Jonathan's silence was unbearable. He hadn't said a word. His eyes had dropped to the floor. Jennifer continued. "Freya, with your consent, we'll need access to your phone logs and your internal communications, Slack, emails, anything that might show correspondence." Freya nodded instantly. "Of course, whatever you need. I have nothing to hide." Jonathan finally looked up. His eyes didn't soften. Jennifer noticed. "Thank you for your honesty, but for today, you can't be in the office. Your position is temporarily suspended until we finish our review." Jennifer gave Jonathan a quick glance. He responded with a single, almost imperceptible nod. Her voice grew colder. "If you're innocent, this will be corrected. But if you're not, the consequences will be severe." With that, Jennifer stood and walked out of the room, heels clicking with finality. Freya rose, legs shaking. Then, "Sit down, Freya." Jonathan's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Icy, controlled. Freya froze mid-motion. She slowly lowered herself back into the chair. Jonathan didn't move, didn't speak. The door clicked shut behind Jennifer. Now it was just the two of them. Freya sat across from Jonathan, her eyes brimming with tears. "I didn't do this," she said, her voice trembling with both anger and hurt. Jonathan nodded slowly. "I mostly believe you," he said. This time his voice was softer, warmer. Freya looked at him, slightly more at ease. "I feel humiliated," she said quietly. "Even if the truth comes out, I'm not sure I'll be able to stay here." "You told me you were a fighter," Jonathan said. "Why does that even matter to you?" Freya shot back. "Whether I am or not. What does it change? I'm just an ordinary employee who's been here for a year. Sure, I'm smart. Sure, I do good work. Thanks for saying that. But there are lots of great people here. And ever since you started paying attention to me, my life's been falling apart." Jonathan looked at her sharply. That look again. Hot, then cold. God, enough already, Freya thought. Jonathan abruptly shifted the topic. Johnson Spacey. He's a close friend of yours, right? The one who's involved with Mark." Freya nodded. "He's my best friend in Boston." "I thought he was your boyfriend." Freya blinked in surprise. No. John's into men." Jonathan hesitated. "Right. So, Mark." Freya was shocked. It was the first time she'd ever heard Jonathan sound unsure of himself. "Is there any chance John accessed your files, Freya?" "Absolutely not. My laptop is password protected, whether it's at home or here. No one else has access to my projects." Just then Jennifer stepped into the room. "Freya, could you come with me? There are a few things we need to look at." Jennifer led Freya to a quiet section of the office. She was calm and understanding, as always. "Come, Freya," she said, sitting down at a desk. "Let's go over this together." Freya sat beside her, watching as Jennifer logged into the system and pulled up her company mailbox. "We're reviewing all communications," Jennifer explained gently. "Since you gave consent, I wanted to go through it with you personally." Jennifer clicked open an email that had just arrived. It was from Rival Tech. Freya's heart nearly stopped. Subject: Job offer. Freya Lockhart. "Dear Ms. Lockhart, we would be delighted to welcome you as our new sales and marketing manager. Please find our compensation package and performance bonus rates attached. Should you sign the contract, we will cover any penalties or fees from your previous employer. We hope to have you on board within 1 week. Sincerely, Samantha Paltrow." Head of HR, Rival Tech. Freya clapped her hand over her mouth. This isn't real. I never had this conversation. I don't even know anyone at Rival Tech except Mark." Jennifer gave her a sympathetic look. "This doesn't look good, Freya." "Someone's framing me," Freya whispered. "There's no other explanation." Jennifer hesitated, then clicked open another window, the company's internal messaging system. Freya felt herself go cold. Of all things, she hadn't expected them to review that. Most of the chat was innocent. "Save me from Gwen. Come by for wine tonight," light teasing. But the last one from this morning, Freya clutched her head in her hands. "John, you vanished last night. While I was walking home alone, Mr. Ice Eyes offered me a ride. I was already dizzy from the wine and dance. Then suddenly I was in his car. I don't know what he does to me, but I swear, being around him. Total meltdown mode. I get all jittery, flushed, like I touched a live wire. I told him things, and he mentioned about pink to me. Can you believe it? I thought he'd kiss me. He didn't. One moment warm, the next cold. I dreamed about him all night, his touch, his scent. God, I'm drunk just thinking about it. What do I do?" And John had replied, "Darling, Pink Vibrator has a crush, and it's not just physical. You're deep in it. Dangerous waters, babe. I'm coming over tonight." Freya buried her face in her hands. Jennifer's voice was quiet. "Freya, that's very inappropriate." Freya's voice cracked. "Please tell me Mr. Gray didn't see it." Jennifer hesitated. It popped up on our screen too. So he might have. Freya bolted from her seat. She didn't think, she just ran. She flung open Jonathan Gray's office door without knocking and froze. Please don't open the screen. Too late. He was already staring at it. Freya had no idea what horrified her more, the fake job offer from rival tech or her accidental love letter. Jonathan remained calm. Too calm. Which one did you not want me to see? He asked evenly. Freya's tears welled up. You choose which one hurt me more, she whispered, and fled the room. As Freya ran down the stairs, she wasn't just escaping. She was fleeing from shattered dreams, wounded pride, and most of all, the look of disappointment in his eyes that she couldn't bear to face. Jennifer entered the office to find Jonathan's face a storm of emotion. She approached quietly and took the seat across from him. Jonathan, are you okay? Jonathan tried to speak calmly, but Jennifer knew him better than most, not just as a colleague of many years, but as a friend. Someone set her up, he said. Someone's playing a cruel game, and I want them found, fast. Jennifer gave a soft smile. I can tell how much you care about her. After Isla, this is the first time I've seen you like this with anyone. Jonathan slammed the laptop shut and ran both hands back through his hair. He didn't have to say anything. Jennifer already knew. Jonathan, we've known each other since college. 15 years working side by side. I know you. You never really recovered from the mess Isla left behind. She shook your trust in people, in yourself. Now with Freya, I know how badly you want to trust her. Jonathan looked up, his eyes sharper than his tone. You think she did it? Jennifer smiled. She's in love with you, Jonathan, and from what I've seen, a woman in love, when it's unreturned, can be dangerous, but it's not unreturned. Jonathan finished, the words slow and reluctant. I made it obvious. I didn't protect the line. I confused her. Jennifer nodded slowly. So her feelings aren't one-sided. Good. Because from what I've learned, she's sharp, loyal, disciplined, and honest. She's taken care of her sick mother, Jonathan. Her father died 5 years ago. They had a small vineyard in Rowley. After his death, the government seized it over unpaid taxes. Jonathan's expression shifted slightly. Jennifer continued with purpose. The land's going up for public auction next month. She placed a document on his desk. You've always had a thing for wine, she said, almost casually. Jonathan squinted down at the file, then lifted his gaze to Jennifer with a slight smile. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. Jennifer chuckled. You're welcome, Jonathan. That's what friends are for. Now how about we put your love life on pause and figure out who actually betrayed this company? Jonathan stood. Let's look at who was happy she left and who has direct lines to rival tech. Jennifer reached the door but turned before walking out. Oh, by the way, she asked with a half smirk, what's a pink device? Jonathan didn't flinch. Delete all the messages, Jenny. When Jonathan arrived in front of Freya's small apartment, he felt a kind of excitement he hadn't known in a long time. He couldn't stop her when she ran out of the office. Everyone had been watching. This needed to happen in private. He rang the buzzer. It took a moment, but the door finally clicked open. As he climbed to the 3rd floor, he tried to collect his thoughts. What the hell was he going to say? Freya wasn't expecting anyone. She certainly wasn't in the mood to see anyone. Fresh out of the shower, wrapped in her bathrobe, she was frantically throwing her things into a suitcase. She planned to head to Rowley, to her mother's house, for a few days, maybe weeks. They were about to lose the house and the vineyard. And now, Freya desperately needed a new job. When the knock came at the door, Jonathan Gray was the last person she expected to see. She cracked the door open, keeping the chain on. The first thing she saw were those deep blue eyes. But this time, they weren't cold. "Mr. Gray, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk," Jonathan said. "Please." Freya closed the door, leaned her forehead against it as she slid off the chain. Of course, this, just to top it all off. A bathrobe, wet hair, puffy, cried-out eyes, bare feet, whatever. Let it happen. She opened the door, tugged at the collar of her robe to make sure it was shut properly. Jonathan stood there for a beat, just looking at her, then stepped in. Freya closed the door slowly and didn't turn around right away. She just stared at it. Jonathan moved closer. "Freya, look at me. Please." She turned slowly, still looking down, leaning her back against the door. He stepped even closer and gently lifted her chin just enough to meet her eyes. "Freya, I know you didn't do it." She froze. What happened? It might have been the best thing, because whoever it was, whoever really did this, thinks it's over now. They think it was you. That'll make them slip up, and we'll catch them. Freya didn't look relieved. She looked betrayed. "So I was bait?" she asked, voice raw. "You let me go through all that just to draw someone out, without telling me?" No, that was never the plan, but things unfolded the way they did, and we realized." Freya stormed past him back to the suitcase. She started stuffing clothes into it again. Jonathan blinked. "You're leaving?" "Yes," she snapped. "I'm leaving the company. For good." He opened his mouth, but she spun around, throwing a blouse toward the couch with a thud. "And don't you dare try that 'I thought you were a fighter' speech, Jonathan Gray." His brows lifted. There she was, his firebrand. "I don't want to work in a place full of secrets and schemes. I'm done. Your company, your games, I'm out. So really, you shouldn't have bothered coming, not for someone like me. Just a random, replaceable employee, a naive, ambitious idiot who got turned into bait." Her voice cracked, but it was also defiant. "And stop looking at me like that." Jonathan just watched her with that same unreadable expression, part desire, part awe. "I'm not your employee anymore," she went on, stepping closer, voice rising. "I get to say this now. I don't like you. You make me nervous, uncomfortable. You get under my skin." And Jonathan moved fast. He wrapped an arm around her waist, pulled her to him, and kissed her, hard. Freya didn't even have time to react. That scent, his scent, hit her like a wave. Her knees went weak. Her head spun. She didn't know if she wanted to melt into him or scream. His arms tightened around her, pressing her against his chest. For a moment she gave in, entirely, but it was too much, too fast. "Stop!" she gasped, pressing both hands against his chest. "I don't know what you're doing, but this doesn't feel good." She stepped back. 2 shaky steps. Jonathan just stood there, breathing hard. His eyes burned, with want and something deeper. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. Please, stop messing with my head. I can't take it right now." Jonathan took one careful step forward. "I want you," he said, voice low. "From the moment I saw you, something woke up in me. Something I haven't felt in years." Freya did the one thing she always did when she was overwhelmed. She clapped both hands over her mouth. Jonathan had always found that endearing, childlike, pure, real. What struck him was how real she was. Clever without trying, honest without effort, and attractive in that effortless, unpolished way. He moved to cup her face, but she pulled away. "Please leave," she said. "Freya." He tried. "Just go. I need to be alone. I can't do this now. Just leave." He nodded slowly, took a few backward steps. Then at the door, he paused. "I'm not giving up on you. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here." And then he was gone. Freya had been in Rowley for 2 weeks. spending quiet days with her mother while also trying, unsuccessfully, to figure out a way to save the few acres of vineyard her father had left behind. The land had gone wild, untended, and worse, they'd missed the deadline for the installment agreement. Freya looked down at the official letter in her hands and muttered, "It's gone. Sold yesterday." Back at Grayson Corp, chaos had finally started to settle. It had been Gwen and Trudy all along. They'd accepted a lucrative offer from rival tech, better roles, better pay, and to cover their tracks they pinned everything on Freya. But Trudy got sloppy. One careless message, some traceable bank transfers, and it all fell apart. Terminated immediately with lawsuits incoming, they were finished. Freya had been stunned to get a message from Adam first, before even hearing from John. "Freya, Gwen and Trudy are finished. I knew from the start you had nothing to do with this. I miss you. Come back." Naturally, John wasn't far behind. "Baby, you won't believe it. The Skank Squad. Yep, Gwen and Trudy. Gray exposed them himself. You should have seen their faces. And then, get this," he said, "although Freya Lockhart isn't present, her support and cooperation have been invaluable. We look forward to having her back where she belongs." "Girl, it was iconic." Freya smiled. "5 minutes too late, John," she replied. "Adam already spilled the tea." John's response was immediate. "Adam, I'm being out-informed by Adam now. This is a PR nightmare. How will I recover from this?" "Baby, come back. Me and Jonathan Gray, we're waiting with open arms." Freya put her phone down. Her mind wandered, as it always did lately, to that kiss. The way he'd pulled her in. The words he'd whispered, "I want you." She caught herself smiling like an idiot and immediately snapped out of it, as if he always gets what he wants. The bitter edge returned. She'd just lost the only piece of land her father had left them. Now all they had was this little house, and she was the only one bringing in money. She needed a job, desperately. But going back to that company? Not a chance. Not now. The letter arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. No sender name, just Freya's full name, handwritten in precise, elegant lettering across the cream-colored envelope. She hesitated before opening it, her fingers brushing over the thick paper as if trying to read the message through touch. Inside was a single page, simple, but heavy with intent. "Freya, this land should never have been taken from you. It belonged to your father, to your family, and to the roots that made you who you are. What I did to you, the humiliation, the doubt, the silence, I can't undo it. Not with this. But maybe it's a beginning. The deed is now in your name. No strings attached, no expectations. Just truth. Jonathan Gray." For minutes, she couldn't move. Then she folded the page slowly, pressed it to her chest, and cried. Not from pain this time, but from the sudden release of something too long held in. She went back to Boston the very next day, walked through the glass doors of Grayson Enterprises like a woman who had grown skin over her scars. Her resignation letter was already written. She handed the envelope to HR first, her resignation short and final, then walked straight to the top floor, heart pounding with each step. The elevator opened with a soft ding, and there he was. Jonathan. He wasn't seated. He stood in the center of his office, hands in his pockets, like he'd been waiting for her the whole time. Their eyes met, and for a moment, just a moment, Freya's breath caught. Because despite everything, the chaos, the heartbreak, the firestorm they'd both survived, her heart still knew him. It still wanted him, and that scared her. She stepped inside. He didn't speak, just watched her, his expression unreadable but his gaze unmistakably drawn to her like gravity. Freya held her head high and walked up to him with slow, measured steps. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady but soft. "Thank you." Jonathan didn't move. didn't flinch. His voice came low and firm. "No thanks needed. That wasn't a gift. It was restitution. A fraction of what I owe you." She gave a single nod. Still, it meant something. He looked at her, then truly looked, and the frost behind his eyes was gone, replaced with something raw and open and entirely human. "I still want you, Freya. Not as an employee, not because of obligation or guilt. I want you, but only if you want me back, freely, when you're ready." There was a silence between them, stretched and aching. Freya drew in a breath. It felt like stepping off a ledge. "Time will tell," she said. Then she turned to leave. Jonathan didn't stop her, but as the door clicked shut behind her, he exhaled like it physically hurt. His eyes lingered on the space she'd just left, filled with something she didn't see, hope and heartbreak. Freya got the loan, clean and honest, not with help, not with connections, on her own name, her own terms. The small vineyard her father once loved bloomed again. She restored the old barn, painted the sign by hand. Lockhart Wines, established year 2025. The doors opened with the smell of oak barrels, lavender, and second chances. Jonathan never called, never showed up, but he anchored his yacht in Rowley twice that summer, stayed just long enough to watch from a distance. Her walking the vineyard rows at sunset, her hair tossed by the wind, the way she covered her mouth when she laughed with guests. He stayed away, but never far. Jennifer noticed. Of course she did. "How can you watch her like that?" she asked one evening. "You're in love, Jonathan." He gave a faint smile, eyes still on the shoreline. "Because I know when she's standing fully on her own, she'll come to me. And when she does, I want it to be her choice. That's why I love her." Jennifer tilted her head. "And you still think she'll come back to you?" "I don't need her to come back," he said. "I just need her to know I'm not going anywhere." 8 months later, Freya's vineyard opened to the public. The grand opening was modest but magical. Twinkle lights crisscrossed the wooden beams. Acoustic music floated through the garden, and laughter spilled with the wine. John, Adam, Mark, Jennifer, they were all there. She greeted every guest, warm and composed, but her eyes kept searching the crowd. Inside the vineyard house, Freya was finishing her speech. Her voice was steady, though she could feel her heart hammering in her chest. "And lastly," she said, "I want to thank, well, someone who isn't here. Someone who, without even knowing all the pieces, reminded me of who I am, who I could be, and that sometimes the land remembers us even when we forget ourselves." She stepped down from the makeshift podium to applause, her cheeks pink with warmth and nerves. She turned and stopped. Jonathan was standing just beyond the crowd, alone, waiting, crisp white shirt, navy jacket, the faintest smile, and those glacier eyes. The room seemed to hush when he walked in. The noise around Freya fell away, and then they walked toward each other, slowly, as if crossing a great silent bridge built by time, distance, and everything unsaid. When they reached each other, neither spoke. Freya looked up, her lips parted slightly. She wanted to ask him why. Why he'd helped her, why he'd left her alone when all she'd wanted was to hear his voice, to feel his arms around her again. But he answered without words. Jonathan leaned in, gently, and kissed her. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't dramatic. It was slow, certain, and devastatingly real. Their past and pain melted in the heat of that one kiss, under the Rowley sun, with the vineyard behind them, and the future finally beginning to bloom. And in that moment, surrounded by the people who had doubted her, who had believed in her, and one man who had done both, Freya Lockhart remembered that some roots, once planted, never die. Not really. Thanks for staying till the end. Where in the world are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. We love seeing how far these stories travel. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. It means the world to us.